number 1. It's day 7. Eric's on the tractor moving brush. Adam's here. We're going to cut down a bunch of ash trees today. Maybe do some processing. We got a bunch of them over here to do. But first we're going to knock down this big bushy one. That's the first one that's going to go down today.
Sounds good. That sounds good.
Oh, it's dull.
Yeah, I say you're dull.
Dull. I'm pushing so hard, man.
You're bouncing rev limiter a couple times where it's just sitting.
What's that?
You're bouncing on the rev limiter once in a while.
Yeah, because it's just spinning.
Yeah, that wind just pushed it right back and set it down.
Well, it wanted to go that way.
Correct.
When I cut the wedge, the wind pushed it, and I can tell.
Yep.
So after the carnage, I had to sharpen up my saws. They were both dull because I was cutting some of the stumps low for my dad in his yard. There was dirt, frozen dirt, up around the root flares, and I cut right through them. So the saw got dull real fast. I'm just touching them up here. And yes, I used the Dremel. That's actually a Easedo is the brand name. A rotary tool for sharpening. Works great. Used a 7/32 Oregon stone bit. And I just have my battery pack. You can see it, the little orange handle sticking up. It's a T1000, and that is what I use most of the time for sharpening because it's got a lot of power and I can sharpen thousands of times with it. And yes, I could plug into the back of my truck, but the battery pack is nice because a lot of times I'll take it up into the processor and I can sharpen with that same tool right on the chain in the processor too. Here I'm just taking the rakers down. The chain was fairly new, and I don't remember if the rakers were ever taken down at all. I usually like to do 1 or 2 strokes on a new chain, just so it's a little more aggressive, because I feel they're a little bit not aggressive when you first get them, probably more for safety, but I like them to be a little bit aggressive, and so I'm just taking them down 1 stroke, and obviously flat file with only the teeth on the file on the flat side, and on the edges there's no actual grooves for possibly ruining your sharpening job, so it's smooth on the outside edges. Specifically made for chainsaws, and it works really good. Here I'm just tightening down the chain, and you can see it's locked into the vise for sharpening. Works really good. And here we had a little cookout for lunch. We had some cheddar wursts and some beans and some cookies, and so we had the fire going. So when we start processing, we've actually got a nice warm place right behind us there. So we had the fire going for the next, I don't know, 6-7 days that we were there, off and on. And watch my brother. We're using little bitty sticks here from the ash trees, and they were not very solid. They were actually kind of like dead little limbs, the little suckers that were growing off. They kept burning on us. So here, back to work. That was a nice one. Yeah. Much like that. That's a lot of wood in there. That's a nice chunk of wood there.
That's worth a log, I think.
Yep. That's probably, actually, if you're selling this for lumber, it's probably worth a couple $100.
Yep.
Ugly! Went that way. It was leaning over there. I turned it that much. I need bigger wedges. Anyway, it's down. Nice looking chunk of wood. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sticks. 12 footers. 6 times 12. Plus the tops, which don't count, but it's a pretty tall tree. Now we're going to cut down these 2 dead snags. They're going to fall to the pond. And then we're going to cut this one down. And that wants to go into the pines. I'm going to try to turn it into this hole here. I only got to turn it a little bit, but it's got a pretty heavy lean going that way. So we'll see what happens here. So the tree you just saw me cut down is this same tree. Adam brought his drone in, so we got a shot from up above, which is pretty cool to see. We only ran it for a little bit because it was so cold the batteries didn't last very long. But he got a couple shots, and a couple of the angles were pretty cool. Here's a kind of a rotten one I cut down. I didn't even have my other camera running, but it was very rotten. There was just like sponge cutting into it. And luckily he had the drone going because I forgot to turn my camera this direction, and you can see at the top there where it's broke off, this is a snag that's been there, geez, I bet it's 4 or 5 years it's been like that. The top broke off. We already cut the top up a couple of years ago, but now I'm cutting this nasty looking one down here. You can see when it falls, it's pretty rotten. I could tell when I was cutting, it was like cutting, like I say, sponge. There was just nothing there. And there was like no hinge or anything, and I thought it was just going to go, because when I was cutting it was, like I said, nothing. It was soft, and I think I just barely touch it, and then it goes. There we go. You can see how rotten it is. That's a dandy. That's an ugly one. Not a lot of wood. And this next one has an extreme lean to it. You can see just by the camera here, and this is a very good example of a chair that could barber chair on me, because there's so much pressure there that it could easily split up. But ash, especially this dead stuff, usually when it's dry, I haven't had any barber chair on me. Living trees, yes, but dead ones, for some reason, they just, I think because they're shrunk down and dry, they just don't really give much. And I haven't had a barber chair, but I think I was kind of worried about this one because of the extreme lean there, so I kind of was watching it close. But yeah, it didn't barber chair, but there was a lot of lean there. Anyway, it's down. Okay, so here's another drone tree that Adam got a shot of, and he had to be off to the side. It was pretty windy that day. He had a hard time kind of keep it in place, I think. You can see by I think it's a basswood with all those seeds on there. They're kind of waving around, but I'm cutting the bottom here, and I think the drone was behind me. I didn't even know where it was, but there I cut the notch. And again, this was kind of a rotten tree too. You can see by the sawdust coming off, it's that spongy, soft, nasty stuff that when you cut it, you're not happy at all, because there's just no, you can tell it's not solid. So the bottom on this was pretty rotten. All these right in this section here were kind of rotten, but there it goes. I think it just missed the drone. But anyway, that one we dropped kind of out onto the ice. There's a couple more we're going to drop onto the ice there too. So there we go. There's the drone shots.
that on the oversight side.
Yeah. So we're going to pull this tree down. You can see it's hung up on top there. We're going to pull this one down with the tractor here. So we're just going to back in. A hook lower.
I don't want to pull too much on that gravel on hydraulics.
and went boom. I'm gonna count the rings and see how old this is. It's a pretty big one. Not the biggest, but it's a big one. So there it is. I just counted 130. Did a little carving in there so we wouldn't forget. So I lived here about right in this section right here. I lived here over in that house for, what was I there? I think 6 years, 7 years, something like that. So little section right here. I was here for this tree. A lot of slow growth in here, real wide growth in here. Must have got logged off right in here. And so yeah, it grew a lot right through here and then tightened way down in here. So this must have been after it was logged off right in here. So yeah, 130 years old. And that's a 30-inch tree, close to it, close to 30 inches. So there you go. Now I got the work to do. I got to get in there and fight the brush. Eric's going to pick up these, and then over here on this side we're going to pull these out. You'll hook the chain and pull those out because they're laying down in the pond. Then we'll pull those out. I'll probably trim the tops off so they pull easier, and then we've got 3 more over there. The one's already cut, it's just hung up. We're going to pull that one out too once we get this cleaned up. So I don't know, it's already about 4 o'clock, so we only got about another hour of daylight. So let's keep cutting. Here comes Eric again. Yeah. I don't know if it's loose yet. I don't know. Just give it a shove and see what happens. More RPMs. Better drop it. Fire? So these 3 oaks right here, white oak, bur oak, are they might be dying. They got like this bark's all coming off here, but it seems to me there was leaves on this last year. I can see dead leaves up there, you know, from last fall. So maybe it's alive. I don't know. If it's not, this would be a project for another day because that's a big one. This is what's left, these 2 here. Now this first one here, I think I can drop in the hole. It wants to go that way, but I think I can turn it 90 degrees if it's not too rotten inside, but it is rotten. I can see it's got some rot there, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to swing it or not. I might just have to drop it that way. But I'll see if I can pull it over here to keep it off all this stuff. But this one here is a bad one because it wants to go that way, and that's the pond over there. And we want it to go that way. So I think what we're going to end up doing more than likely is drop it on the pond and cut it up into like 12-foot pieces and then just pull them out across the ice and up the hill. Just skid them out because that's where it's going to want to go. If anything, I might be able to turn it to the left or the right here a little bit. I ain't going to go to the right because I hit that tree, but I can go to the left because that's just a box elder there. That could be taken out. That's no big deal. And so maybe that's, oh no, that's a basswood. It's a basswood, sorry. So we might be able to drop it past it or next to it or something. I don't know. It wants to go that way though. There's a lot of lean and there's a lot of branches on that side. So it looks like those are going to be the last 2. I still got that big boy up there to limb up, but Eric's going to bring the tractor back with some chains right now and we're going to hook up to these. I got these limbed out already. I just limbed all these up. So we're going to pull these 2 out. Up! They're shortening it up.
I could probably get onto the main line now.
Yeah. Down and back about a foot if you can. I'll cut it up here.
Huh?
I'll cut it up. You might as well grab that one and another one and come back get this and we'll pull the other one out.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to push that one that's laid on it.
Oh, yeah.